I wanted to ask if possibly the tree can also symbolize that tunnel to the heavens also, because at the top of it we always put a star.
That's right, and that's exactly right. The star at the top represents the North Star.
Right.
Not the star in the east. It doesn't represent Sirius, because the tree itself represents the same axis that I was talking about that goes from the South Pole to the North Pole. This tree of life, this axis mundi, the world axis, is represented in the stars. And as a result, it's like the macrocosm and the microcosm have the thing in the sky that's represented by us bringing down the tree into the house. And so all these symbols, if we really understand it, it's like the top of liberty. Libertas, the goddess of liberty, which carries the Phrygian cap and wears the Phrygian cap. If we look all through the American history, she carries the caduceus, which represents drugs and the secret knowledge of drugs and plants. Mm-hmm. And she wears the liberty cap, which represents the liberty cap mushrooms. And her crown has 7 points, or 7 stars. And the 7 stars represent the 7 stars of, can you tell me?
Oh, the 7 sisters? No, the 7 stars of what?
Well, if her head represents the north, she always has like a snake at the bottom, or the serpents come up the central column, right?
Right.
Another one of our fractal representations. The 7 stars represent the Big Dipper.
Okay.
Because this is our circumpolar representation. It always goes from the south to the north. And there is the particular spot in the heavens. And it's represented by these stars. And it's also represented by the out-of-body journey of the shaman, which is also represented by this axis or world tree, which connects, again, the heavens at the top to the underworld, or the snakes at the bottom.
Where did the tradition of leaving out a little treat for Santa come from? You know, when you're supposed to leave out some cookies or something like that?
Well, I wish I could answer that, but that's not one of the things that I can answer. I don't know.
How about the tradition of confessing? If you've been a good boy or a good girl, you know, you're supposed to, that must be the life review then, you know,
right.
When you're supposed to see if you're, you know, if you're naughty or not, you know. There are lots of, I forgot the Christmas carols that you know, ask children to, you know, well, if you get presents because you've been good, or,
right.
you know, maybe you've been naughty.
He knows if you've been sleeping. He knows when you're awake.
Right.
He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake.
That's right.
Now, that's pretty cool, because if you think about that, that is like our creed, you know, do no harm, right? Do as thou wilt, but harm no one. Or the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Don't hurt other people. This is the golden rule. It's the general law. Everything else beyond that is an elaboration. Now, I get into trouble with people sometimes because when they read my book, they go, oh, you know, you totally tore apart the 10 Commandments in your book, which is what I do. And I explain to them, I say, look, I have to do that because anytime that you try to put your own belief on something and you try to take that law and expand it out into something else, you're into trouble, because now you're making a man-made law that you're saying is the Word of God. Mm-hmm. That's where we get into trouble, like prohibition of sexual freedom, you know, adultery, you know, or fornication. Mm-hmm. Ooh, laws of God, you're not supposed to do that. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't particularly believe that. Mm-hmm. In our Santa Claus tradition, it doesn't say anything about that. It just says, you know, if you're bad or good. What does that have to do with, you know, having a good time? I don't think it's always associated, you know.
What other commandments do people get or feel that have been offed or offended by your writings?
Well, like the one that says don't covet, you know. Don't look at things that other people have and say, ooh, I like that, I want that.
Right.
Thou shalt not covet. Well, what does that mean? Of course, this is one that was written by those that have for those that have not.
Exactly.
You know, don't look at my stuff because it's my stuff, you know. And don't think you can have it or even want it because, you know, you have your spot. You have your couch and your TV and your job you go to 8 to 5 that you'll never be able to afford this Maserati or whatever it is. So, I don't think this is I don't think that, and especially when they start to tell you, look, if you're committing the sin in your mind, then you've committed the sin, it's just as good. Like if you look at a girl and say, oh man, she's so cute, just for the flash you think she would be wonderful to kiss. Now you're going to hell forever. They always play on this guilt trip to control us. So I really like the associated view in Christmas. Don't be bad, be good. Everybody should know that. It doesn't have to be explained to you. If you're hurting people, then that's not cool. If you're not hurting people and you're having a good time, then we have to revamp our whole concept of what that really means.
Yes. This is KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara County. You are tuned to Radio Alchemy on Something's Happening with Roy of Hollywood. I'm your host, Evan. On the line, James Arthur. You have to go to his website. Tons of material out there. Some of his previous speaking engagements, because this man gets around. His website is www.jamesarthur.com, and Arthur is...
.net.
Oh, jamesarthur.net. And Arthur is spelled A-R-T-H-U-R, correct?
Yeah, just like the King Arthur.
Yes. jamesarthur.net, not .com, .net. Go there, find out about the magic mushroom and its significance and what maybe could be significant to us today, which is a grand review. It would be amazing for our civilization to go through a grand review, a mass grand review, the United States on mushrooms. Wow, James. Now, talking about a conscious or maybe an extra-conscious revolution, that would be absolutely amazing. From the civilizations that you've studied that had this as a natural part of their lives, what could you say about their civilizations? I mean, were they still, kind of, did they still have crime? Did they still have murders? I mean, did they actually have a higher civilization because they went through this kind of review process on a personal basis?
Well, of course, it's really hard to tell because most of the real understanding of the ancient civilizations have all been wiped out by the Crusades and the library burnings and the destruction. It's really funny. I mean, we go all over the world and we see nothing but ruins and rubble, and once we start to study it, we realize that most of this was done by Rome. When the Catholic Church was created and it was become a Christian or die, then that's really what they did, and they marched in with their armies and they destroyed the area and burned all the books and the manuscripts and everything, and so it's really hard to know. I mean, Christianity has at its core a lot of these same concepts, but of course Christianity is a bad representation of all these concepts because it's adopted these ideas and changed the meaning of them for its own political, religious purposes, and so it's hard to say. I mean, I could foresee there's a book out called Walden 2 that's really interesting that talks about society, a society made by people that's outside of the world concept